Iyov responds. His friend Eliphaz has just told him he's a sinner, and pretty much what they continue to say to him. In chapter 16, Vaya'an Iyov Vayomar. Iyov responded, Shamati che'ele rabot minachamei amal kulchem. I've heard many things, right? And what are you guys? Interesting phrase here. Minachamei, nichum avelim, hamakom minachem aleichem, birashamayim tinachamu, comfort, right? What are you? You guys are minachamei amal. You are troublesome comforters. You're coming to comfort, but you're not offering nichama. You're not offering comfort. Haketz ledivrei ruach oma yam ritzcha ki ta'aneh. You have words, windy words with no limit. This is like back and forth. They're accusing each other of saying bad words, of saying mean things to each other. Ma yam ritzcha ki ta'aneh. What afflicts you that you speak on? Why do you keep it? Just leave me alone. Gam anochi kachem adabreira lu yesh nafshechem tachat nafshi. Achbira alechem b'milim va'aniya alechem b'mo roshi. I would also talk like you if you were in my place. I would barrage you with words. I would wag my head over you, right? I would also be the guy who knows everything if you were the one who was suffering. The first time he says to them, I get a little bit why you're saying it, but he knows that they're wrong. He's saying that they're wrong. Amitzchem b'mopi, like the word emotes, amatz. I would encourage you with words, v'nidz fatai yach soch. My moving lips would bring relief. Im adabra lo yechasech yechasech ka'avi v'achadla ma mini yaloch. If I speak, my pain will not be relieved. But if I do not, what have I lost? And here he turns to himself. He turns to his friends. You guys are not offering too much comfort. Maybe I would act like you if I was in your situation. But I'm going to speak. It might not help me. But if I don't, why not? Some people say, why should I complain? Nobody's listening. Okay, just complain. Maybe somebody's listening. You have it's no loss if you don't. Afata helani hashimota kol adati. Now, God has worn me out. You have truly destroyed my whole community. Vatik miteni la'ed haya v'yakam bi kachashi b'fanai ya'aneh. And what happens, God? You've shriveled me, and I'm gaunt, right? Look at what I've become. I have no meat on my bones anymore, and it testifies against me. Look what I have become. I have become sort of the example. Say it further, but I become sort of the example of the embarrassment, the person punished, the person suffering. Apo in verse 9, Taraf ayastimeni charak alai b'shinav sari yiltosh eni li. In God's anger, he tears me, persecutes me, he gnashes his teeth at me. My foe stabs me with his eyes. Everything looking at me, everything causes destruction. Paro alai b'fiem b'chafraku lechaya yachad alai yit malaud. They open wide their mouths at me, reviling me. They strike my cheeks. They inflame themselves against me. Right? Everybody's making me suffer. Yasgireni el avil va'al yadei rishaim yirteni. And here's a interesting verse that as the reader, we know Iyov here, it's not clear what Iyov's saying and not clear that he knows everything that he's saying. But here, what he's saying, we know is true. God handed me over to an evil man. He didn't hand me over to an evil man, but he did hand me over to something evil, which was the Satan, the prosecutor. God thrust me into the clutches of the wicked. And really, my translation here says man, el avil, it doesn't necessarily mean a man. It's giving me to something over that's evil. We know that that's what God has done. God said to Satan, he's yours. Do as you wish. Just don't kill him. Shalev hayiti vayifar pereni va'achaz be'orpi vayaf tzifetzeni. Lengthy words. Vayikimeni lo lematara. Everything was fine. I was living like shalva, right? I was living with peace. I was untroubled. And what did God do? He broke me into pieces. He took me and he shattered me. He set me up as his target. Yasobu alai rabav yifalach kil yotai v'lo yachmol yishpoch la'aretz mirei. God's archers, his bowmen, surrounded me. They pierced my kidneys. They showed no mercy. They spilled my bile onto the ground. Yifartzeni feretz al pnei faretz. Yarutz alai kigimor. Holes, breaches after breach after breach, right? Think of the movies where I've seen where somebody's shot by arrow after arrow after arrow after arrow, and it's like they've got 15 arrows in them, and they're still somehow fighting in these movies. All right, so right here, that's what God's done to me. His bowmen, his archers, and they rushed at me like a warrior. Sak tafarti ale gildi ve'olalti ve'afar karni. I sewed my sackcloth over my skin. I buried my glory in the dust. Fanai or panai chamar meru Bini bechi, my face is red with weeping. I have that word chamar meru, I believe, in the book of Eicha, another book about death and destruction. My face is red with crying. Vi'al afapai salmavet, and darkness covers my eyes. We've had the word salmavet here before, but usually we have the word choshech over and over again, to bring back the world back to the pre-creation era. But here he uses a different word, salmavet. We know that word from Tehillim, Parakhaf Gimel, of course. Even as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that word salmavet is used there, the tzel of mavet, the shadow of death. There are different pronunciations, different understandings. Let's continue. Verse 17. So here, right, Iyov is talking to his friends. You haven't been good friends. You haven't been comforted me. God has allowed wickedness to take over me. Satan's had me, and it's just been arrow after arrow, shot after shot. Anything that can possibly go wrong has gone wrong. Continue in verse 17. Alo chamas bechapai utfilati zaka. But I've done nothing wrong. I have had no injustice. And for the purity of my prayer, we have something called tefillah zaka, which we say for Yom Kippur, a prayer. So we want a zchut from it. We want to have merits from it. And Iyov says, my prayers have been pure. I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe I did something wrong, but certainly not to get this. And here he says, perhaps the most interesting verse in this phrase, Eretz al tichasi dami v'al yihi makom lizakati. So right, he's saying, I'm offering pure prayers at tefillah zaka. I am somebody who's turned to God during these horrors. And he says, earth, do not cover my blood. Whether that refers to I'm going to be dead and this is all going to be forgotten, whether it's a reference, I'm sure you're thinking in your heads and you're thinking back, Cain and Hevel, right? The blood of your brother is calling out to me from the ground. Don't let my blood just be covered. Don't let this all be ignored. Don't let this pain and suffering that I'm going through just be forgotten. I have what to say. I have a pure prayer. I have a real argument against God. Earth, do not cover my blood. Don't let there be no resting place for my outcry. Don't try to silence me or ignore me or pretend that everything I've gone through hasn't happened. And Iyov says it about himself. And again, he's the exaggerated case of every person who has been treated wrong, every person who's tzaddik viralo, who's righteous, and yet suffering has come to them. Don't pretend like it hasn't happened. Don't cover over my blood. Going back to Cain and Hevel and other stories in the Torah where we talk about, right, don't stand idly by your brother's blood. Gamata hine vashamayim, we're in verse 19, AD, vasahadi bam romim. Surely now, my witness is in heaven. He who can testify for me is on high. He turns to the heavens as a witness, and he's turned to the earth. We have that in the Torah multiple places. We have it most famously back in Parshat Ha'azinu, towards the end of the book of Dvarim, the song of Moshe, Ha'azinu Hashamayim, right? Moshe calls upon the Shamayim, and he calls upon the earth. He calls upon both the heavens and the earth to be the witness to the Jewish people. The song that I'm going to tell you, the ways that you have to follow God. As you know, life is going to become, for our people, it's going to become troublesome at times. And here he said, what? He said, earth, don't cover it over. Eretz al tichsi dami. And then after that, in 19, Gamatai neva shamayim ad. My witness, and Sahadi also means one who can testify. The Sahada, if you know in Arabic, the term Shahada, right? That's the I believe that's the term that's used for the opening prayer of the Muslims, the La ilaha illa Allah. There's no witness, there's no God but Allah. And it's the same word like in Hebrew we have Sahadi. It's usually spelled with a sin. Here it's spelled with a usually spelled, with a samach. Here it's spelled with a sin. So Iyov calls upon the heavens and the earth. Don't hide don't, right? The whole world should know, everybody should know the pain that I've gone through, the horrors that I've gone through. God has turned me over to evil, has not protected me. He continues in verse 20, Militzai re'ai el Eloha, dalfa eini. Oh, my friends, my advocates, my fellows before God, my eyes shed tears. V'yochach legever im Eloah, uven adam l're'ehu. So let him arbitrate between a man and God, as between a man and a fellow. He's asking, right, these witnesses, right? If I only had a witness, if I only had somebody who could take my case in front of God. He's tried to offer it and hasn't been brought. Maybe somebody else who's greater, who's more devout, who's more religious can. Kishnot mispar ye'etayu va'orach lo ashuv eheloch. Because my years will pass and I will go the way of no return. Iyov here, again, unjust. My friends are not friends. My claim is not being listened to. Maybe somebody else will be able to bring this in front of God, and God will listen, and God will hear, and God will justify God's decisions. It probably won't happen in my lifetime. I'll live for a short amount of period, a short, small amount of time. I don't know if Iyov wants that. He sounds pretty strong and pretty feisty and he wants this fight. But he recognizes that it doesn't seem that it's going to happen, but it's not right that it's going to happen. He should not be covered over. And right, this idea of the earth not covering over our blood, is something that's mentioned very much with Jewish deaths in the Crusades, Jewish deaths in the Chmielnicki massacres, and certainly as we live in the, still in the post-Holocaust, while there still are Holocaust survivors, right? We'd say that, Eretz al tichsi dami, right? We don't want the earth to just cover over their blood. They should not be forgotten. We cannot ignore it. It's not something that can be forgotten. And so too here, Iyov is the one who starts it. I've suffered unjustly, and don't pretend like it never happened. The claim against the Nazis is the claim against other humans, is the claim against no more genocides, is the claim against Jewish blood shouldn't be cheap. Iyov's claim is much further. Iyov's claim is one of theology, one of theodicy, one of God's way that God runs the world. But either way, it's a phrase that unfortunately is something he seems to call upon earlier characters in Tanakh, and a phrase that has been used, sadly, throughout the time and the history of our people. We should not forget those whose lives were sacrificed, their blood and their sacrifice, and their, in many places, not a sacrifice. Maybe the soldiers going into the army, those who were just murdered for no reason that they should not be a Jew, other than they were Jewish, that their blood should not be forgotten, and that they should not just the earth cover them over, and there should not be ignored.